Now, I wanted to start and just kind of tell people who you are, where you started, kind of your story here. So, what was your story like? How'd you get started? Not only in the industry, but just where's it begin and how do you end up here?
Well, as a kid, I just was interested in guns early on, so started reading gun magazines in elementary school, really.
What were you reading?
Guns and Ammo and Shooting Times. Grandpa had Sports Field and Outdoor Life, so I was, reading those magazines and getting interested in outdoor pursuits. But as I got even just a little older, started liking more and more just about the gun part of it.
Sure.
Not necessarily the hunt story, but the actual equipment. And from there, I just started tinkering with it. The first gun I ever built was a little black powder, build your own kit pistol.
Yeah.
My parents got that for me for Christmas, and my mom kept it under her bed. I found it probably about October, and I started sneaking in and working on it, putting it back. By Christmas, I had it built, except for the finish and the stain and things like that. But I had the gun built. I had the fitting done. I had all of that. I think I was, 8 or 9 years old or something.
Or did you unbox it and they think, oh, no, it's just supposed to be
a
kid?
kid. I did the whole, that's all surprised and happy. And thank you. And, but, that was probably my biggest snoop present in my, that I ever got into as a kid. And I kept every little chance I could sneak away. And I remember working on it with a little pocket knife and just, anything I could do to put it together. So.
Yeah. So after that, that's young, early age. Where'd you go from high school? Did you, what was your path like?
It was outdoor kid. Dad was in construction, so it was always we were doing something. And a lot of times on the weekend, Dad'd come back from whatever job, and he used to travel the week and work off, somewhere, come home on the weekend. He was really good about getting us out to go fishing, or as we got maybe into the 12, 13, 14 age, go out and do some shooting, things like that. And and just as I entered high school, we moved to Utah, and Dad and Grandpa, me and my older brother, built a house. Now, of course, that was Dad and Grandpa. We were helping every way we could.
Sure.
But it was built south of the Salt Lake area, so it was rural. At that time, we had pheasant hunting in the backyard. We had opportunity just to get done with whatever we were doing and just walk right out the back and, be able to be, in big games of pursuit in our mind.
Yeah.
We had single shot 20 gauge shotguns. We both had paper routes. So we were using our paper route money to buy reloading supplies, and we were loading shotgun shells. We had an old Texan shot shell reloader, and me and my brother were shooting just as much shotgun as we could afford to buy shot, and wads and all that for. So that was really where I got more into it. We were also doing a bunch of rabbit hunting out in the West Desert, so whatever money we didn't put into shotgun shells, we were putting into 22s and running around out there and shooting.
Yeah. One way or another, you were hunting, shooting, or
doing a bunch of it. My first 22 was an old Winchester Model 74 semi-auto, which was my dad's. Mm-hmm. And it was one of my first repair projects because they had a weakness in their firing pin system. So when that broke, then me and my dad actually stripped it down and, did a little kitchen table work, got it going.
Yeah.
The first gun I ever bought for myself was a 94 22 Magnum.
Okay.
And that was inspired by my grandpa, because my grandpa had a Model 92 Winchester takedown 25-20. Well, when I was looking at Grandpa's gun and wanting to shoot a gun like Grandpa's gun, of course, the 92 was no longer available. 25-20 was considered obsolete. You could still find it a little, but I started studying up, well, what's a what are the ballistics? How's it shoot and all that. And kind of found a comparison between that and a 22 mag.
Sure.
So 22 mag being available in that 94-22, in my young eyes, that was a nice made up. So I bought one of those, and actually my grandma went to the sporting goods store. It was Jerry Sports Center in Cottonwood Mall in Salt Lake, and she actually did the paperwork for that gun. And I bought that gun. It was $95.
Oh, wow.
And then we went fishing. We went out on Starvation Reservoir in Utah. And along Starvation, there's a bunch of, it's more desert-looking environment. Mm-hmm. But Grandpa told me, he says, we'll get out there, we'll park the boat, and we'll go out and we'll walk and shoot and do some plinking.
Yeah.
So I got to go on a hike with Grandpa, him shooting his 25-20 Model 92, me shooting my 94-22 mag. And we didn't shoot anything in particular, just plinking dirt clods and whatever.
Yeah.
But we had a great time, which turned out to be really very meaningful, because that winter, after we did that summer vacation, he passed away. So
yeah,
it was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's a great memory to have. Mike, let's set your water over here towards the center so it quits wobbling like that. Yeah, that's better. Yeah, so all through your younger years, all through high school, you're hunting, you're shooting, you're fishing. I mean, you're just outdoors. You're
and
person.
High school in those days, it was, you kept your shotgun in your truck during the bird seasons, and we would hunt either before or after, or before and after school. Typically, do a little pheasant hunt, go to school.
Sure.
Then maybe after school, we'd go and walk the river and jump ducks on the river. And I'm talking about the Jordan River, which I was recently back in Salt Lake area. You don't go walk the Jordan River with a shotgun anymore and shoot ducks. It's all grown up, and it's just everywhere you go is it'd be a tough place to shoot and not cause a problem.
Yeah.
But we used to jump ducks on the Jordan in the afternoons, and it was a good time.
Yeah. Obviously, we didn't grow up the same way in terms of bringing your shotgun to school and hunting before and after. But in college, I was turkey hunting in the middle of the season, and I had a class that started at 1, so I went straight from the woods to school, just changed in the parking lot, and I'd have my shotgun with me.
Yeah.
And here came the campus police officer, and I thought I should say something. So I stopped him and I said, hey, I just came from hunting, I have my shotgun in the back of my truck. Do you want to take it to the police station, and I'll come pick it up after? Is there anything I can do? I just want to make sure there's no problems on my part. He said, son, we ain't worried about somebody coming from hunting. Go to class.
Yeah.
And I just thought, way to be.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great. So after high school, do you go to college? What does that look like, leaving school and then going into adulthood?
That was, my hunting habits began to be a problem for me during that time, because I scheduled my classes Monday through Thursday so that I could have Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And I would go out and hunt. And I had a buddy, he was going to a different school, but I had a buddy that we would hook up on either Friday or Saturday, and we would go up to northern Utah, where there was some really good rabbit hunting in the wintertime, up around Snowville. And I can remember going up there, and he would shoot a 22-250, and I was shooting a Winchester Model 70 and 222 with a really nice, highly figured walnut stock. It was a Bishop stock. And we would hand load our ammo. And in those days, I wasn't a hand loader for precision. I was a hand loader for necessity.
Yeah.
I'm going to school. I'm part-time job and
college kid.
So I can remember one time we were going to Snowville. It was about a 2.5, maybe 3-hour drive. And I had a Lee hand loader. You know what the Lee loader is? The little hand tool set where you have the 3 pieces.
Okay.
You size it, run it in with a hammer. I called it bang bang reloads. You hammer it in, knock the primer out, size the brass, knock it out, prime it, powder, seat the bullet.
Okay.
And you did it in steps with these different tools. And so I had a piece of plywood sitting in my lap, and I had my Lee loader set out so that lay everything back into his box so it wouldn't roll off
Yeah.
while I'm sitting in the back seat hand loading on the way to go shoot jackrabbits. They worked fine, and it was a lot of fun. I think I got about 150 loads done on the road.
Yeah.
Going up there, getting my ammo resupplied.
Just sitting in the back getting ready.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So, and because you have such a good story and then how it all ties into landing here and being at Wilson Combat, did you finish school? Did you go all 4 years? Did you get a master's? What was that?
No, I never finished school. I actually left and went to work in a gunsmith shop in Houston, Texas. I worked as an apprentice gunsmith.
Okay.
And that happened in the late 70s. So I was actually in Houston working for a coatings company that my dad and uncle had started. And during summer, I was working for them. And I walked into Collector's Firearms in Houston, Texas, and I asked them about gunsmith schools because I was thinking of changing from college to gunsmith school. And one of the owners, Jerry Fountain, he's since passed away, but Jerry said, well, would you like to work for a gunsmith? And so I said yes. And I left my dad and my uncle and went down and started working in the shop. And that's where I got into commercial gun business.
Sure.
So
Yeah,
that
cool.
was how that worked out. I stayed with Collectors for a while, but actually only a couple of years. My grandparents were working on a ranch up in Wyoming, and my grandmother had some stroke and other illness, so Grandpa needed to take her off the ranch and move her back down to Bountiful, Utah, where they were from.
Okay.
So at that time, he asked me if I would come up and take care of the ranch. And the ranch belonged to a company that he had worked for a long time. So I went ahead and agreed to that and went up to Alpine, Wyoming, and I worked up there. And I actually ran a gunsmith shop out of my house on the ranch for about 5 years up out of Alpine, cool. Wyoming. So, yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. Went to Wyoming this year for the first time. That's a pretty place. How, okay, you do that for a couple years. You're running on the ranch there. At what point and how do you get tied in with Bass Pro, and what did that whole adventure look like?
Well, prior to all of that, when I kind of got to a point, I'd had a child and I had a daughter. Actually, I had a daughter down in Houston when I was still down in Houston. I had a son up in Jackson Hospital, Jackson, Wyoming. And my wife at the time, we were, thinking it would be better to get out of that harsh environment, which I enjoyed it, but it was hard on the young family and all. Pretty heavy winter over there in western Wyoming. So we moved down to Salt Lake, and I got a job construction over in Twin Falls. Coming home one weekend, I stopped into a sporting goods store, got a job working a gun counter, a company then called Sunset Sports. That turned into Gart Sports, and Gart Sports was based in Denver. I ended up moving to Denver, and then after working for them, becoming a gun buyer and working in the commercial side of it in the office as a purchasing agent, moved from Denver over to Springfield, Missouri to go to work for Bass Pro.
Sure.
Once I got involved with Bass Pro, it started out as a buying position. I started actually buying camo clothing, technical rainwear, things like that.
Okay.
And then after a year or so, moved into the gun purchasing department, be the gun buyer, and then started a fine gun room. And that began working in higher grade guns and working collections, used guns, a lot of really top quality guns from around the world.
Sure.
At Bass Pro, we used to sell to a customer that required gun transfers to be done and he was from Berryville, Arkansas. So I became acquainted with Wilson Combat by bringing guns down from Bass Pro that needed to be plugged into their FFL so that this fella could come over and do his 4473, pick his guns up. And in those interactions, became acquainted and interested in Wilson Combat. And ultimately, opportunity came up where I could say, is there an opportunity for me to come to Wilson Combat? And that came to fruition, and I've been here now a little over 7 years.
Sure. Yeah, there's a lot there, and I think one thing that is interesting to me, and maybe others will find it too, but in that purchasing position, and you're bringing guns into the fine gun room and Bass Pro as a whole, what does that look like in a logistics form, and what did that look like in your job day to day?
Well, the melding of gun dealer type business and corporate sporting goods was not a good fit. It was very difficult logistically. Compliance was always tough. There's a number of people in a corporation that have responsibilities that maybe didn't understand exactly what I was trying to accomplish or needed to do.
Sure.
And as you're working under the roof, so to speak, their roof, their rules. It was my job to fold in the way gun dealers do their business into how a corporate, corporation needs to have their business done. And it's all the same kind of compliance requirement. It's the methods were a lot more difficult. There were a lot of steps to get it all taken care of. The nice piece about it was still that pure, good gun. I always appreciated the way guns were made. I do appreciate the way guns are made. I like the quality of them. I'm more a fan of wood and bluing and maybe traditional manufacturing process, where the world began 20 years ago, moving into alternate finishes and
Sure.
synthetic material stocks and all those things. So that gave me a chance to really live in that environment of all of those really good old guns and the historical aspects of it, the family stories that came around it, because part of what I did was interacting on estates. When the unfortunate circumstance of an estate sale comes up, you're dealing with a family that's got a heartbreak. Very typical that dad passed away, the kids have some interest in a collection. Mom is, she's kind of at a loss, and the job was really to make as fair an offer and a deal,
Sure,
to help them clean their gun collection out.
Was that a lot of
When the collector was not, the collector was no longer there to take care of it.
Sure. Was that a lot of it go into the estate sales or finding them through individuals, or was it a lot of dealing with the companies and manufacturers themselves?
It was both. I mean, we did, high-end guns from all around the world, where we would actually order and have models done. We did more domestic stuff, commemoratives from Browning, some of the stuff that was not the everyday hunting environment type rifle, shotgun, handgun. That was left to the gun counters. So
I see.
in the fine gun room, we would do buy sell trade, and we might end up with a Remington 760 pump, and that's not necessarily what you call a fine gun, but it was part of the whole buy sell trade business.
Sure.
And when you went to go buy a family collection, first of all, you're going into somebody's house in a relatively difficult time, taking a piece of the whole family's history away from them,
Yeah,
so there was that whole human side of it that was, you just be respectful and come there. And you never were uninvited. It was always at their request.
Sure.
But then to go in there and identify the guns, figure them out. Sometimes the family members would know something about them. Sometimes they wouldn't. I spent part of my effort would always be to educate them about what they had, and then make determinations about value and where we could position ourselves as a buyer, and then handle with care.
Right.
Take it all out And then we would take, with, sometimes good with the bad. There'd be some stuff that you really didn't maybe want that much, but
Part of the collection.
you
And
usually try to not leave them with things they would have to deal with.
sure.
The most difficult collections to buy are when the collector is still alive, but he's recognizing that it's time he moved his collection on
Yeah.
because he has the understanding of the actual value of the guns. And the values don't change, whether it's Bass Pro selling it or someone else. But what changes is there's an expense involved if a company's going to buy your collection. And that collector is the hardest guy to let go of that difference because he gets it, because that's the way he's been buying guns his whole collecting career, but not his favorite thing to do.
Sure.
Yeah.
Was the fine gun room always a thing, or did that start during your time? When was that in?
No, I started that in about 2003, 2004, something like that.
2004, you started it?
Yeah.
Wow. That's great.
So it was an idea that Johnny Morris wanted to have these fine gun rooms, and competitively other companies were doing something similar. So we put it together from the building of the rooms, the policies and procedures, the whole process.
Is that nationwide, the fine gun room?
It is not. It's in select locations, and now that they have Cabela's, it's also their library versions are similar, and they do the same kind of thing.
Sure. That's awesome that you had that experience of kind of founding that and then pushing that forward, and now it's rolled out even more, so that's really cool. How, some of these English companies, did a lot of hunting in South Africa, and that's a big topic, is the high-end English guns. Did you run into many of those?
Yeah, not as many as you would think, because the collecting of English guns on this side in the U.S. Came a little bit later. So most of the guys that got into those guns are still living and have them.
Sure.
So there's a lot of those guns that are probably hitting the market since I've left and no longer a part of it, but there's a lot more of those guns that are going to hit the market.
Sure.
The thing about the English guns is, one, they have a great history in Africa, and a lot of the guns were bespoke guns that were built for purposes specific to the African hunt and the style of safari that existed at turn of the century and beyond.
Sure.
So when you see a gun now on African TV shows, you're starting to see a lot of quality custom bolt rifles. Many and most actually are U.S. built, U.S. companies. You're still seeing a fair amount of Sauer and different guns like that. But the nostalgic and historic English double rifle, it's not as pervasive in at least what we're seeing in the way of hunting videos and African shows.
Sure.
Oftentimes the calibers they're big. They're a heavy push on the shoulder. The guns are 12 to 15 pounds. They're not that fun to carry. They're not that fun to shoot. You got 2 rounds to work with, and there's just so many other options. Also, a lot more of what we see in today's African hunting is plains game oriented. So we're looking for a little bit flatter shooting guns and things like that.
Yeah, so that's something that I noticed too. Obviously, most of them are very expensive, but a lot of the times when people would come over, it was mostly all plains game. There may be a buffalo or something thrown in, but it was mostly plains game. And I grew up, 308 was typically all I ever shot there, and that was plenty enough for me. When you were going and doing these estate, purchases, what would you find the most of? What were you seeing kind of most common in a collection?
Well, most common, I called them the family guns. So when you'd go through a collection, and whether it was 40 guns or 240 guns, most of the collections were reflective of the interest and the culture of where the family was from.
Sure.
So You see a lot of early Winchesters, a fair number of Colt handguns, a lot of Browning shotguns. That was probably the predominant shotgun, Browning and Remington. Now, most of the Remingtons you would see would be 870s or 1100s. Most of the Brownings you would see would be Satori's, a few superposed. Most of the Winchesters would be lever actions. There would be a handful of bolt guns, but most of them would be lever actions, and then there would usually be some selection of rimfire.
Okay.
And almost every family collection, and I'll distinguish a family collection versus a collector.
Okay.
A collector, obviously, he's got his interest. He pursues a model. He goes after variations. You can find a very specific brand or a couple of brands that he collects, usually Smith & Wesson, Colt, Browning, Winchester.
Sure. But not as much deviation.
Not so much variety.
Yeah.
But one thing I'll say in common, in most of the family collections I ran into, somebody had a Marlin Model 60,
Yeah.
22. There was almost always a Remington Nylon 66 or the 77 version. I mean, they almost all had those. Typical variety of various little Winchester. Sometimes there'd be some of the Browning takedown 22s. Those were usually a little bit more rare, but if you saw a lot of Browning shotgun influence, you usually saw those 22s in there. And that was personal taste of what they liked. If the family was, a bunch of rabbit hunters and small game, they may be a little heavier on the rimfire stuff.
Yep.
On the handgun side, in those days, it was mostly revolver.
Okay.
And then if there were automatics, semi-automatics, you'd be looking at Colt 1911s or 03s, pocket models, things in that realm. Not that many German guns. Usually I'd find a Luger maybe, sometimes a Mauser, but most of the time if they had semi-autos in the family style collection, it was some kind of a Colt.
Sure.
1911, whether it's full size or government or officers or whatever it was. When you got into more educated or dedicated collectors, if they had a Colt collection, that was always interesting to me. If they had a Colt collection, if they had a Smith & Wesson collection, if they had Winchester or Browning, whatever they specialized in, that was just a huge opportunity to learn, because there was always a variation of something that I hadn't seen before. I might have read about it. I had a nice library to work with so that I had references. Of course, as the internet came on, that became more prevalent in, doing research and study on values and variations and so forth. But a lot of the early work was done, out of the books that were considered accurate and viable, that you could, check things and look at them and learn about these little variations that were so wide, so many.
Yeah.
And I always felt like every collection I went and looked at, I learned something.
Yeah. So you mentioned something there. During this, you said you're in Springfield. So, and you said traveling to these different families' homes to look at the estate sale. How far would you travel for those?
The farthest I went was up to Bozeman, Montana. Most of it, I did a trip to Wyoming. Most of what I did was Missouri or Kansas or Arkansas.
Close by.
Close by, yeah.
What was one of the coolest things, if you had to pick one or two, what was one of the coolest things you found in these collections?
Well, I did go to a collection over in North Carolina. I can't remember if he was in North Carolina or Tennessee. He was in Tennessee. And I went over to this collection. This fella had actually collected guns partly because of his interest and partly because of his charity or generosity. And what I mean by that is he would have guys working in his company, and they might be a little short one week and want an advance on pay. and he would give him that advance, but he would take collateral on the advance.
Yeah, yeah.
And a lot of that was
Guns.
a gun.
Yeah.
Surprising in his collection, just in general, he focused as a collector on Winchester, specifically Model 12 and Model 94. Now, in the 94, he wasn't as particular as most 94 guys are in high-end 94. He had stacks of Model 94 current production for the time that he was acquiring them that had price tags that were somewhere between $69 and $89 and $99 on the box, in the box, never fired. So we had a lot of that. But the one thing that he had that was, I've never seen one of since and couldn't take possession of that one, was a Thompson 45 in 1927.
That's pretty cool.
Submachine gun. So that was a cool gun.
Yeah.
And I remember telling him that, you know, you need to register that gun and, you know, things like that. And it was probably past the time that he could do anything with it. And I declined to purchase that from him because I couldn't legally take possession of it. And realistically, I just had to tell him that he needed to go actually turn the gun in. And I remember I did pick it up, but I remember putting gloves on before I did because I didn't want to get my fingerprints on it.
Yeah.
So that was cool. And then I had a guy up in Wyoming that had a Sharps.
That's cool.
It was a really beautiful carbine that was very minty, but it was one of the saddest deals because a week before we got there to look at his collection, and he had 2 or 3 Sharps, 1874 Sharps, carbine cartridge rifles, and most of them pretty rough, but he had this one that was just really, really nice. But the week before we got there, he was showing that to one of his friends or buddies, and he dropped it and broke the stock. And this was an original rifle, so that was a heartbreaker. He was sick. He was literally sick when we got there, and not in a very good mood, and did not end up buying his collection. It was just not. It didn't work out at all.
That's funny. Oh, what a shame.
Yeah.
Aaron, what's a Sharps like that going for now? That's crazy.
Yeah. So the estimate on that rifle at the time was about $80,000. So that wasn't a happy time.
That's awful.
Yeah.
So, okay, so you're doing this for a couple years. You're growing that collection. You're working in the fine gun room and everything, and that's going well. You're transferring here into Berryville. You're working through Wilson Combat in some fashion. To what extent, you know, how do you go from that to saying, hey, I'd like to work here at Wilson?
Well, the opportunity for Wilson was a two-edged deal. I had, you know, kind of overstepped myself at Bass and was invited to maybe find something else.
Yeah.
And so I had these conversations with Wilson Combat and checked into it and was able to put things together. And I moved from the buying side of the business to the selling side of the business.
Yep.
So that was a transition for me. I also moved into a different culture that when you have worked in the corporate structure and figured out a way to bring the gun business into a whole system of different layers of rules and regulations, you know, that's one set of skills.
Sure.
But it doesn't serve you very well when you come down and you go to work for guys that are hardcore gun guys, you know. And I think when I got down to Wilson Combat was when I really started to learn about the shooting side of the business, not the hunting side of the business. There's just so much more of the business that, like in a hunting style business, you're basically 30% of your business in the front half of the year and 70% in the back half.
Right.
at Wilson Combat, this business is relatively even quarter 1, 2, 3, and 4. You can hardly tell them apart because the shooting, consumption style, business activity, the numbers of guns that these customers at Wilson tend to repeat or buy similar variants of because they operate the same. They use them in daily carry, they use them in weekend shooting, they use them in their either in rural farm or city center, whichever way, but they're active shooters. They're actually participating.
Sure, not so much collecting. And
yeah,
there is some of that.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously collector's value to any manufacturer's product that's got some rarity or some oddity or some other factor to it.
Sure.
But what I found and learned about when I got here was just how many guys were buying these guns for the real reason. Yep. You know, they wanted to shoot it. They needed it to perform. They respect quality. And I got to tell you, I was very pleased to come into that, but I was a little bit jealous because going back into the fine gunroom times, dealing in the buy-sell trade used gun business, it was all about greed. It was all about, well, how much can I get that for?
Sure.
There was oftentimes very well-built, very high-grade guns that maybe weren't known too much to the local customer base. Consequently, a lot of that stuff sold online. But they were just more interested in what kind of a deal.
Yep.
They didn't have appreciation for what it could do or the real purpose of why would I buy that gun? Because I want to go bird hunt in Argentina, because I want to go to, Africa, because I want to go out west or whatever. They just, it was different to come here and see guys who were so appreciative of the quality and construction and performance of what the gun was built to do and that it did it.
Sure.
That to me was impressive. That was an aspect that I felt was missing until I was, introduced to it here at Wilson.
Sure. I'm sure working in that room you saw plenty of finely crafted guns and handcrafted guns, and there's that level of it. But, every gun here being handcrafted is a pretty large task, and to know that every gun that comes out is that same way, that's pretty impactful.
It is, and, I had mentioned I was also more accustomed to and grown up with the highly finished or the traditional finished. It really gives me a great amount of respect for the guys that do the finish work here, because it's very difficult to get a good paint job on an automobile, a good paint job on a gun. These things are hard to finish with the modern finishes that we're using. Like if you go out there and, I used to do my own rust bluing, so a very painstaking process, but you could come out with a very high quality traditional finish.
Sure.
Take that same gun and paint it.
Yeah.
I'm not good at that. So, it's interesting. And backing up from before the finish gets applied, the way that these guns are built, the way they put them together, this is old school. Yep. This is, guys doing triggers. We got guys doing barrel fitting. We got guys doing frames and slides. That kind of stuff is very long, standard, very professional gun making that's been historically the process throughout the world.
Sure.
So I really enjoy that aspect of it, and I think the pride that the guys take in the work they do.
Oh, it's immense.
It's amazing.
Yep.
Because they're proud to the point of I'll fight you.
Every one of them are that way. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so it's really a great environment to work.
Yep.
I think when I first got here, I did not fit in that well. There was a sense of, I don't know, maybe people thought I was arrogant or carried myself like I knew it all or whatever. Sure, I've got a lot of experience, but I always am learning, always. Sure. And I always have something to learn. It's one of the things I mentioned earlier about these collections. You'd go in there, and even though you've bought 10,000 guns, there's 10,001 and you've never seen it before.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
So what I've learned being here and flipping from the buy side to the sell side of the table, I think my buying experience helped me in the way that I present information to our buying customers. We work with some national buyers, you know, pretty professional guys, and you got to go in there and present information, be able to talk the language with them, and they feel comfortable, and that gives them a better chance of accepting the product. But it was a switch, because one thing, when I was a buyer, I did not like reps. It was like, you know, they were almost like your enemy, and you had to, you know, it was always a fight to get the thing worked out right.
Yep.
So
Yep.
now I flip over, and now I go into an office and I'm the rep. Yeah. It's like I'm the enemy, because that's just not the guy that, you know, the buyer is the one that has the purse. And so that's where the control is. And you got to be crafty when you go in and talk with these guys and help them have the right idea, you know?
Yeah. So, and kind of just walk us through, you know, I know now you're a seller, obviously you used to be a buyer. What does that look like for you now, day to day? What does your day consist of?
Well, it's a much different. Obviously, we're not, you know, I'm not spending my time seeking information about all the varieties of other things that are out there, so that making decisions that way, but rather staying up to speed on all the stuff that we're doing, which is no easy task, because we're constantly innovating. So finding, you know, where we have the next new thing, what it's about, how it fits in, and then how to present that out to a customer, an account. We also do some international business, and that's its own kind of little world.
Are you cold calling like Jordan Belfort? When you're giving people calls like, hey, listen, I got a deal. It just came across my desk.
Oh, sure.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Giving them the whole spiel?
Yeah, you got to do it. Otherwise, how are they going to know about it?
Yeah.
So,
have you seen The Wolf of Wall Street?
I have not watched that movie, no.
You got some homework?
Yeah. Well, that sounds good.
Yeah. No, it's good. Anyway, so you have to
But yeah, you do that because you got something, and when you've got something to talk about, you got to go talk about it. You got to present it. I mean, it's my responsibility at the company, but it's also an opportunity missed for a customer, which if they don't hear about it, if they want to take advantage of it, they got to know.
Yeah, absolutely.
And obviously that's what we're in the business to do, is build products to sell for the companies that buy from us to make money. Yep. The whole thing works if everybody's working together.
When you're making these calls, obviously at this point you've built up some kind of list of people you've done business with since being here, and you have that base. You know, how do you find that person who you maybe have never talked to before? Do you get numbers like that on your desk? How do you get in touch with them? Yeah,
we get a variety of ways that we get contacted, or we contact and reach out.
Sure.
And obviously normal methods, tell a friend, somebody told me, referrals, that's probably the biggest for direct contact. But then there's just looking at a company, going on their website, finding their numbers, calling the company, saying, hey, I'd like to talk to, and, you know, reach out and develop a conversation, talk about product. And then, you know, I mean, the one good thing about that, and it's not like you're at some call center and you're just calling random numbers until somebody picks up and they're, you know, half drunk and they agree with you. It's all about being in a common business. We're all in this together kind of thing. So usually if you call a gun company, whether it's a dealer or a manufacturer, you're looking at probably, you know, sourcing some parts to them. Maybe you're talking to a distributor trying to bring, you know, a product family or a new item. Maybe you're talking to another country. You're talking to, you know, just different types of customers, but we're all in the gun business.
Sure.
So that common thread makes the conversation easy. The noise that I deal with, and you see a lot of it because in the position I'm in, I get frontline contact from other businesses that are trying to sell us a service or something that they do that hits my desk, and then I kind of shuffle the cards and, well, this ought to go over to Sebastian, and this ought to go over to Will, and this needs to go to Tressa, and wherever it needs to go, because it's none of my business. And, that's a piece of it. Now, I always try to give due respect to whatever that request coming in, because it might be an opportunity that someone in our company that has different responsibilities might see that and say, that's something we're looking for.
Yep.
So I've put myself on the other side of the call. Somebody's reaching in and they're touching me, and I'm going, yeah, but that needs to be over here. Yep. Very rarely do I make a call on behalf of another department to say we're not interested. I mean, it does happen, but that's part of the nature of the way the business is these days, and it's significantly different than when I started. I mean, backing up to when I started, I was on the road traveling, whatever. This is before the days of cell phones, all that hunting and everything else we were doing. There was no cell phones. There was a map and a compass, and there was no nav in the truck, and there none of that stuff.
No AI.
Yeah, it's changed a bunch.
Yep.
I remember one of the biggest evolutions was I was working out of Colorado, and I got issued a pager, and I'd be on the road and that thing would go off, and I'd have to get off the highway and go find a payphone, and I'd have to have change and put it in and call the office, and hopefully the guy was not on the phone because
run out of quarters.
Yeah, communication's come a long way, and obviously people don't even hardly call as much as they used to. It's mostly email.
Sure. Yeah, it has changed a lot, even just since when I was a kid, because I remember always sitting by the house phone waiting for my friend to call, and then we all got cell phones. I tell Aaron all the time I'm going to get him a pager because he never answers his phone. So,
yeah.
But when when you're going through that progression, now you're kind of fully acclimated here at Wilson Combat, and now it's been a couple of years and you've been here. How do you see the shape or future of Wilson Combat as a company? How do you see that kind of morphed into since you've come on?
Well, one thing that's been constant that I've been witness to is that Bill Wilson and Cam Ankley, who's now the COO, there's a culture of innovation.
Sure.
And that's embedded here, not just in the leadership, but these guys that I've talked about and taken pride in their work, they're also the same guys that fix problems because they know what things need to have or be or get done to in order to work, in order to be viable, to be a product that's got some value.
Sure.
And so the innovation that comes out of this type of culture is what I consider to be the future of Wilson Combat. If you have a company that does one thing extremely well, and they do that until there's nobody left to listen to what that is or care about it, you're done.
Yep.
What Wilson constantly does, Wilson Combat as a company, not just from one guy saying, okay, I'm going to have all the ideas, and this is the only way anything's going to work. Now, it's great having Bill Wilson, who is either charging all the time with those ideas or the best guy in the industry to bounce those ideas off of, because he can see immediately the viability of it. But that aspect alone, to me, is what's the future of Wilson Combat. It's really innovation. It's paying attention to what customers are doing, what they like, what they need, building it to the best level of quality that can be done, and just taking care of the customer's needs. But I think without innovating, without bringing new ideas, you really don't have the
Sustainable.
lifespan
Yep.
that you might be otherwise capable of.
Yeah, so something, and with Dad being a gun writer and has been my whole life, you know, the company always has a new gun. There's always something coming out that's the new and the best, and they are new and they are different in ways, but most of the time it's still pretty similar to the last version that came out. And something that I was blown away with when I came in October, the first day I didn't shoot a gun at all, and I saw the Project One, but you look at it and it's the new gun. You know, there's nothing special. Same, you know, it's different. So when they let me shoot it the next day, it was one of the few times I've ever shot a new gun and thought, wow, that's innovative. You know, that's something I haven't felt before. And even now when I pick it up and shoot it, I feel the same way. So that really speaks to that innovation that you're talking about.
Well, that's a highly visible innovation that
Sure.
customers see and the marketplace can see. Competitors can see. It's achieved worldwide recognition. I have customers internationally that don't necessarily understand what they're going to get out of that gun and some of the purpose-driven features of it, but they know it's the hottest gun in America and they want one.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
we just recently set up a special set of those guns that it's like nobody understands what that gun was about. And like you said, it can look so much like just another gun.
Yep.
But once they shoot it and feel of it, it's totally new and exciting, and it's real innovation. Another piece of the puzzle on innovation, though, is taking the processes of gun making and gun building and staying true to the real way to build guns, but also to make improvements along the way.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
whether that's to how certain parts fit together, maybe it's not so much just a process change, but it's actual maybe refitting, a key part, making a better sear, a better hammer notch, a better trigger, just different things like that are also very innovative. And some of the smaller parts that, sometimes things get made and it's like you say, there's this brand new something, same old.
Yep.
But sometimes there's a piece of the puzzle that really becomes important.
Stopped during the Second World War and had the same gun ever since, and the innovation would have been that, and if you stop before, then
Sure.
gone.
And to that point, it's also much more difficult in today, 2025, to actually innovate because look how much stuff has been done.
Sure, right.
But then when you open up and you start looking at the wire and the news feeds and things going on and, outdoor news information and things like what your dad's doing on articles, and you continue to see that this is a group of individuals, really the whole community of the firearms business. These guys are all thinking. They're all making stuff. They're all trying
absolutely.
to, do it another way, a better way. Sometimes there's been something missing, and hey, okay, now I see it. You can bring that out. Whether it's bipods or slings or stock finishes or stock materials or, just so many different aspects of it.
Well, you mentioned Cam earlier, and a topic me and Cam talk about quite a lot is what's next. And not only what's next for this company, but what's next for the industry as a whole. And, what is that next big thing? I don't know. I mean,
Well, and it's funny you bring that up because one of the common questions when I call on one of our bigger customers is, hey, how's it going? How's business? We talk about that, but then I say, what's the next big thing?
Yep.
And that question sometimes, right now, and it's sometimes, hey, I think it's going to be, and they'll name something or some, maybe a small family of product or maybe some, particular item.
Sure.
So that's a common question. It's tough in a slow market, which our market has been tough. it's tough in a slow market to say what's the next big thing, because right now there's not an energy that's going out there across all of the models and types of firearms that you could be purchasing, that you could be shooting, you could be playing with. Obviously, if the price of ammo were to stabilize, that's going to affect the consumer greatly, because that's the participation cost.
Sure.
And if we can get that under control, then we have a lot more shooters out there playing with their stuff and making things go bang, and having fun and enjoying that, and wearing stuff out and wanting to try something new. When you come up with something like the P1, that's the next big thing for us. That has customers that we don't offer that product to, channels of business that we don't offer that product to. That's got them all just, salivating.
Yep.
When can I get a piece of that action? So the constant question that I get in the channel of business that I service the most, being the distribution channels, both domestic and international, unfortunately, we don't offer that gun into those channels. We have a limited ability to produce the gun. We set it up as a limited opportunity in the first place, and it's everything we can do to satiate the market that we have offered it to, which is primarily our dealers, our direct dealers. And it's just created so much interest, and like I said, even worldwide,
Sure.
that it gives us a chance to take the features of that, some of the best parts about it,
And then implement it
and build it into, other models or
the
families.
EDC, the double stacks in general.
Right, and we could already see opportunities in that. So I think what you're going to see from Wilson in this whole discussion of innovation and new item and all of this, you're going to see some opportunities that come from what we've learned in Division 77, Project 1.
Yep.
That's just going to be able to happen because they work. They're proving themselves now. We bring that kind of stuff in, into the market. Those are smart things for us to be looking at, and we're looking at them.
Yeah, so, and that's the whole concept of Division 77, put it into place in the project guns, roll it out into what we can in the flagship models that are not limited, and I think one thing you're talking about times changing, and to say that and not say the attention span or the interest duration, I think is unfair, because a week after Project 1, there's a handful, quite a large amount, thinking of Project 2. And that continues and goes and goes. So to your point, exactly what you see in these project guns then rolls out and becomes standard practice.
Yeah, and, attention span, that's a good thing you brought up, because there's variance of what the time of an attention span is, but there's always an attention span.
Sure.
So even if we look back in time at the guns from World War II, there was a time into the 50s and 60s, even the 70s, where there was so much interest in those guns from World War II that they were heavily collected.
Yep. Yeah, right.
But the attention span ran out about 1980, and I'm not saying for everybody, but it's like that in short windows, especially in today's rapid fire market. But it's been like that over time. It's always been like that.
Well, and I said attention span, and just to clarify, I didn't mean that in a bad way towards anyone who may be watching, because my generation and my age and younger are the most accused of that of anyone else, and it is very true. We've grown up watching 10-second videos, and we'll swipe away before 2 seconds hit because we didn't think we'd like it. So that wasn't in a bad way, but the fame or the hype, it dies so quickly and on to the next. And we're still seeing quite a bit of fame and hype with the P1, but that question is there. What is Project 2?
Good point. I used to sit on a mountainside and watch an eagle soar until I could see the eagle no more. Now you can get on there and click and watch an eagle for 15 seconds and be like, oh, that's cool. You might have spent an hour watching this eagle till you just couldn't see it no more.
Yeah. Yeah, but no, that wasn't in a bad way. So, Mike, I think one thing, it would be unjust if I didn't ask you to tell some stories, because you're one of the best storytellers I've ever listened to. And I don't want to put any kind of bumper or rail guards on you here, but I'd like to hear some of your stories, and I think everyone else would too after they hear you tell the first.
Oh, man, throw it out there at me. I mean,
You've got some good ones. I hear you're an avid cast iron collector.
Well, I'm not. If you talk to cast iron collectors, I'm not.
Okay.
They wouldn't allow me into their club. But I am a fan of cast iron, partly because I'm lazy and I don't like to wash my pans all the time. You can just rinse them and wipe them and go. And I like to keep a cast iron, a 10-inch and a 6-inch, and got a couple of small Dutch ovens, medium sized and a big one. Pancakes and cornbread and all that.
Steaks.
But what I did do is struggling for cupboard space, where to put my cast iron. I made a wall of cast iron. So I've got all my cast iron hanging up on the wall in the kitchen. It's actually the side panel for my refrigerator pocket where my fridge goes in. And that's got a wooden panel. And so I hang the cast iron there, and I probably got, I don't know, maybe 15 or 20 pieces, something like that.
Yeah.
But then down in the corner of it, I hang a rifle on the cast iron wall. So I call it from field to table.
Yeah, yeah.
I've got everything to go, grab my rifle, step out,
come back, hang out,
shoot a rabbit.
Yeah.
Bring it in, clean it, put it in the pot, and go. So, yeah, I like the cast iron.
Yeah. When the marketing team heard that we were going to do a podcast, we had a plan, and I told them no because we are in Arkansas, and I know you, and the plan was that one of them would ding-dong ditch you, and as they were running away, I'd sneak in the back door and grab one of your cast irons, and I'd bring it here, and I'd show you. And I told them no. I thought that was a really bad way to start this podcast, but they were pretty bent on it, so really wishing I would have done it to see your face now.
You might have got shot.
Exactly. No, but you do. You tell some great stories. I think something that is maybe getting lost again in my generation is that ability to tell a story, and the way you move through it compared to what I've been so used to, at least with people my age and slightly above. You tell a story, and I've never heard it, is how I would explain it. When I tell a story or people my age tell one, it's like you already know what's happening, and we're walking through it together. And you have a great way of really building that suspense to where...
Well, so I appreciate your comments. I guess I kind of understand. I've got grown kids that are older than you and maybe one about your age. But so it is different. And part of that is just the way we've grown up.
Sure.
And, we started out on that, being out in the field all the time. I guess where I really got started with it all was with a BB gun. And, when I was real young, we lived in Southern California, and at one point we lived up around Palmdale.
Okay.
So I had a Schwinn Stingray bicycle.
Yeah.
Sissy bar in the back, the big handlebars, banana seat, slick rear tire, We would ride that to the end of our little cul-de-sac, and it wasn't actually a cul-de-sac, it's just the road ended, and from there it was just gravel and dirt and on into a wash and out into the hills.
Sure.
Well, I remember my folks got me a Craftsman 760 BB pellet.
Okay.
Pump it up, little BB gun. And we would, after school, get home, get on the bikes, ride out to the wash, and we would hunt. Maybe it's bad to say, but we would hunt grasshoppers and lizards, you know. And I remember in those days, it's different too, because our deal, I mean, there's no phones, there's no, you know, lifeguards on the corner. It was like, you ride your bike over, drop your bike, drop down in the wash, go walking.
Sure.
And the rule was you had to get home when it started getting dark, you know. And that taught me a good lesson, because all through my hunting and everything since, it's like when it starts to get dark,
Time to go
you
home.
need to think about shelter, camp,
Sure.
you know, because navigating back to camp in the dark, especially if you're in a new spot,
You get lost.
It
You never
get
know.
dicey. Yeah. So that to me was kind of a foundational experience of how to do what to do. And there was there's good lessons that you learn when you're out hunting. Like, I had a buddy when I'm gonna bounce around a little bit. I was up in Wyoming, and he wanted to come up and hunt, and we were going to do a coyote hunt, a duck hunt, and a goose hunt. And we were going to stretch that by daylight, by wee hours, and then a little bit later on a field hunt for geese.
Is that like the O'Neill Challenge? Is that what that's called in Scotland?
Don't
with
know.
the red stag, the salmon, and there's one more. It's pretty similar. Anyway, go ahead.
All right, so lessons. The night he was going to come up was a Friday night. Well, Friday afternoon, and this was late in the elk season, I had 2 tags. I still hadn't taken any elk. I'd been holding out for a big bull, hadn't found one. I had a cow tag and a bull tag, and my buddy was coming. He was going to be there Saturday. Sunday was going to be the last day of season. He was checking out on Sunday. So I thought, snow on the ground. I'm going to go out Friday afternoon and see if I can get an elk. Mm-hmm. And then when my buddy comes up, maybe I'll share the harvest a little bit with him.
Sure.
We'll schedule our hunt for the morning for coyote. We'll do all it. So I got out there Friday, probably got position about 3:30. And I was, I had been working on a 25-06 for a buddy in town, and I asked him, I'd take your rifle out and hunt, because I had it all dialed in. I thought, well, I've never shot anything with a 25-06, so I'll take that. So I lined out, went up. And there was pretty good snow on the mountain and down in the bottom. And then I was actually driving the job truck from the ranch, and on the property, which was part of the ranch property, but it's just a different section, there was obviously no plowing. It was covered with snow. And that was a 2-wheel drive pickup that I had the bed of the truck filled with gravel. And then a piece of plywood on top of the gravel, so I still had a truck bed. But I could only get inside the gate and done. So I'm up there on the hill, and I'm watching, and here comes a group of cows. And pretty good lead cow, big cow. I thought, well, got a cow tag. It's getting late. It's by now about maybe 3:45. And that time of year, it gets dark about 4:30 up there.
Okay.
So I lined up on her and I shot, perfect. I'm sitting, rested on my knees, slight downhill, not terrible. Lined up, she's looking right at me, put it on her neck right there. Squoze off around. Nothing happened. I completely missed her.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So she put another round in, lined up, same hole, same spot, pull trigger, different result. She down.
Sure.
So, okay, got my cow. Well, right after that second shot, I heard like rocks or brush or things going on above me, and I turned, and there's a spiked bull that had been coming down, and he's turning and going the other way. And so I racked in around. I had a bull tag. I shot him in the back of the neck.
Sure.
And I thought, I got my elk. And I'm sitting there and I look, it's about 4 o'clock and I'm by myself. And I was like, I got my elk. So, and my buddy's coming. He was living in Salt Lake, and so he's coming up after work. And it's about a 5-hour drive. And I thought, oh, man. So I went up and field dressed the Spike. And being on the hill and plenty of snow, I just drug him right straight down into the bottom. And then I went over to the cow, and she was a lot bigger than that Spike, body-wise. Field dressed her. So the cow, I quartered her up. The Spike, I went ahead and just opened him up and laid him open and cut him in half down the middle. I used to carry a axe and just, cut down through the spine. So I split him in half, and I took and hung one half of him up in a tree and took the other half to the truck and threw that in the truck. And then I came back and I took the hind quarter and front shoulder and drug those like where I could even out got her back. So a couple more trips, got the cow back in the truck. Well, now it's about 11 o'clock. So I get in the truck and head back to the ranch, hang up the elk, pull in, and it's not even in 20 minutes, 30 minutes after I pulled in, my buddy shows up, and he'd been driving into the night. It's about midnight, and he got into my place. So I had cut some elk meat off and took it in. I said, how would you like some fresh elk meat? Great. So I'm cooking up some elk meat, and we're talking, and we're catching up because we were best buds all through high school and all that. He was my jackrabbit hunting buddy. So anyway, I'm sitting there chatting, and we're talking about, it's now getting to be like 12:30, 1:45, and we're talking, and we're eating elk, and we're talking about coyotes in the morning, and then ducks, and then we're going to goose. So I says to him, hey, would you like to take some elk home? And he goes, yeah, you bet. And I said, he says, well, how much could I have? And I said, I said, how much would you like? He said, how much could I have? I said, you can have a half elk. And he goes, half an elk? I said, yeah, that's the good news. The bad news is your half is still on the mountain. And so we literally went from there and got the other half and brought it back. And we were younger then, stayed up all night. Got it back, got it hung, and then we took off to go coyote hunting up Snake River, up on Highway 89. So we go up a little ways, and we come across roadkill. I pull over, and we get out, and coyotes take off, and they're running in that deep snow. And I said, my buddy, and there you go. Got him a coyote. So then we come down, and it's getting time to set up for ducks because the hunting at that time, the ducks would come in about 7:15, and then the geese would start flying about 7:30, 7:45. So our plan, hunt the ducks. We had a little pond we were going to jump, hunt the ducks, and we did. In those days, you could get 7 ducks, and so we hunted ducks first best light we could get down there after that coyote. So it was, probably about 7:30 by the time we got there. And shot a duck, first one, another lesson. We didn't have a boat or a dog, and this one had gone on into a pond off the side of the Salt River. So I thought, well, I'll just go retrieve it, and not wanting to get my clothes wet when we're out there in all the snow and cold. I stripped down, started wading out to go get this duck. And I did not get very far. No. Anyway, my buddy had to bring me back. So after that, we started blasting and pushing the duck with water ripple so we could pick it up on the other side of the pond. It wasn't a very big pond, but wading out there wasn't the answer. Yeah. But anyway, turned into a real successful morning. We got our ducks and moved over to a field and set up some goose decoys. and we only had to work the goose hunt for about an hour. And at those days, it was Canadian geese. You get 3. We got our 3 geese, and we were back at the ranch by about noon or 1 o'clock, and had lunch, took a nice nap, spent some time getting things cleared up, and then he headed back home. And that was one of my very compact time frame, most successful hunts that I'd ever been on, from that Friday afternoon until that Saturday afternoon, having taken all that game. So, recommendation, you got 2 tags.
Use them both.
Take a buddy. Don't kill them both at the same time. If you do, you got a lot of work ahead of you.
But yeah, Mike, so there's 2 questions here I'd like to ask to kind of everybody who comes on. And the first one being, if you could build a gun for you today, with all the knowledge you have and your tastes and what you like, what does that gun look like for Mike Loder?
I think for where I'm at now, what that gun looks like is very much like a gun that we have, and that being the Nat'l bolt rifle. I mean, I enjoy ARs, and go back to 82 or 3 with an AR story on coyotes. I mean, there's just lots of history there, but I like the lightweight. I like the quality of a good bolt action. I think that's really where
the gun.
That'd be where I'd go with it. Yeah.
What would you have it chambered in?
You know, there's every chamber possibility that you can run with, but one of the calibers that I've hunted with but never owned, which is a great caliber to run with, especially in this Midwest country, is a 308.
Yep.
Ammunition's available. The caliber's capable. To me, that would be a good choice to fill a spot as a caliber that I don't have, and a nice lightweight quality bolt rifle that I enjoy.
Yeah. Well, that's my pick too. You know, I think the Nat'l is near perfect of any bolt gun I've ever used. And it's so light, it's just perfect. Like I said, you know, hunting in Africa a lot, you're walking all day long, every day. And it's much better than 12 pounds when you're walking that far.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, and then the last question, Mike. So for a younger viewer or someone who, you know, maybe they're interested in hunting, maybe they're interested in guns, or they're just in the industry in general, you know, maybe they're not at all. But what advice or kind of insight would you give to, you know, a young adult kind of getting started in his adulthood or her adulthood? What would you tell that person?
I would say go out and experience what your interest is. You know, there's a lot of rhetoric out right now about get off your phone. I can tell you that as I've gotten older, I've fallen into relax and watch a screen, watch hunting videos. I get on my phone. And I catch myself at it, and I say to myself, hey, you know, get up, go outside, go do something. Whether it's working in the garage or working in the yard, or, you know, I've got a couple buddies with farms and go up and do some stuff. Just get out there and experience it. And if that's your passion is swimming, if your passion is, you know, whatever it is, if you want to shoot, if you want to fish, if you want to do an activity, do that activity.
Yep.
That would be my response to that.
Yeah, that's great. Mike, thank you for your time. I think this has been great. Really appreciate you sitting down with us.
All right, thank you.